All right. So today is day five of the 180-day challenge, but I have bad news, bro. I have bad news. If you remember yesterday, I said I couldn't finish day four. That's the 1.5 at the goal, the daily goal. So what happened today was I could only complete day four today. So basically, I've not started day five, but today is day five. So I'm lagging behind by one day now. But I'm going to catch up, and I'll let you guys know when I catch up. I will catch up. I will catch up. Um, and honestly, today there's not a lot to share, but I'll share. Like I mentioned before I started um the 180 days challenge, right? It was me like sweeping through full stack development. I know many pieces here and there: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. I've even used Next to try to build my personal portfolio, but bro, it was not looking good. And I have dabbled with Node a bit, and MongoDB, and Express, I think, like little dabble here and there. So today, and not just today, it's been something I've been doing. Like, if my instructor is coding something that a new someone who is new to HTML and CSS would need to code along with, I really don't do that. I would just try to make sure I understand it, and then from the point of my understanding, if there's any other thing I need to verify, cross check, make sure that I know how it works, then I check. But like, I'm not doing word for word like a complete newbie. You get. So today was about the box model in CSS, and this would have been very, very beautiful if I had set up my streaming software so you guys can see. But uh, I've been saying I will do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'm going to do it. So what is the box model? The box model is basically the framework for every HTML element, starting from the biggest HTML element, which is the body. Um, the box model is the rectangle. Every element you see on a web page has its own box. Every element you see on a web page has its own box. Um it doesn't matter what unless it's an inline element. I'm not so sure, but majority, let's just use the word every loosely. So basically the box is made up of the content of the element plus the padding plus the border and plus the margin. So like I said, it would have been beautiful if I had something to show you guys, but honestly, think of it like, let me use um what do I use to actually really explain this? But think of it like, um hmm, I really need to show this. Maybe I would still show this on some other day. But if not, forgive me. Um, but basically, like I said, every element has its own box, right? So let's say you see a sentence on a web page that says welcome. So welcome represents the content of the box model. Around welcome, you may find the padding if it was set on the CSS, and then the border around that padding could also be visible or not depending on whether it was set. And then the margin is the space, the empty space that separates one element from another element. So it's that simple, but it's not very simple. So there are two types of box models. I think the first one is called the border box, and the second one is called the content box. So in my understanding right now, the border box is better to use because when you set the default is content box, and I'll explain what that means. So for the content box, when you set the width and the height of a HTML element, it is the content you are actually setting. So think of it like this. If a HTML element has a border that is as big as 100 pixel, and you set the content to have the width of 200 pixel, what you would notice is that the real width on the web page is going to be 400. Why is that? Because the default border box that the browser uses is content box, and the 200 pixel you set talked or had effect on the content itself. Can you see it now? The border is not part of the 200. Just see it, so it can cause issues. So it's good to set it to border box so that when you set it to 200, the borders, even if you have set them to 100 each, will still be 100, and then the content itself would adjust so that it takes the remaining out of the wait, how is that going to be? I don't think that would I don't think that would work because the content may overflow. But let's assume that you set it to 400. So using the border box, so the 400 is going to the browser is going to give the content 200 because the border is already 100 on this side and 100 on this side. So if you get the analogy, so that was one. Then another thing I learned was how to set up or how to set a web page to be centered on the browser. So it's basically using a trick that is called auto. So margin, remember I said margin is the spacing between HTML elements. So if you'd have a HTML element, which is the container of your web page, that's the container that contains everything in your web page. If you have a HTML element like that, the space between that HTML element and the body element, which is the overall umbrella of the web page, is a margin. So if you set that margin to auto, it means automatically calculated. So it's not fixed. So if you reduce, if you move, if you shrink or expand the window of your browser, that margin will be automatically calculated equally, and then it will give us the illusion of your website being in the middle. And I think that's cool. Which other thing did I learn today, or was I reminded of? Yes, I think I wrote some things on my iPad. But even before I look at my iPad, I remember that I talked about width and height. Um, so for an image, I don't know why. So I talked about width and height for an image, right? So an image is hmm, image is inline. It's not a block element, but I think you can set it to block, but that's not important. What I'm just trying to say is the image element has two attributes. Not only two, but two of them are width and height. So you could set them, right? But then on your CSS, if you change the width and you don't change the height accordingly, it's going to be skewed. You will lose the aspect ratio of your image. So what I just took in my note was, for your mental health, or for the sake of your mental health, do not um, do not specify the height and width of an image in HTML. Do everything in CSS. If you do it in CSS, this works with HTML, but if you do it in CSS, you just have to do one. Depending on what you really need. There's a lot of things that may change, but like depending on what you really need, you can just set the height or the width, and the other one is going to adjust, um, follow suit to maintain the aspect ratio of your app. Sorry, of your image. Yep. Um, Yeah, I think those are the important things. The last one is probably not that important, but it's called collapsing margins. So remember again that I said that a margin is the spacing between two elements on a HTML page. So if you have two paragraphs and you have the margin top to be 50 pixels and you have the margin bottom of the top paragraph to be 50 pixels, the overall spacing is going to be 50 because there's no need to, have it like that. That's what is called collapsing margins. Um, so you could just set one instead of setting both of them. You could just set one to 100. Most usually, or the preference of my um, course instructor, he wants to set the bottom of the top one. I mean, you could also set the top of the bottom one. It's the same thing. I hope I'm not kind of confusing you guys, but don't worry. God willing, tomorrow I'm going to have that. I'm going to have my VS Code, open, and we'll see things happen in the browser. Um, mm, 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 mm. Yeah, I think that should work. I'm thinking about how that would work because then writing code may be a little bit small in the screen, and you may have to. Well, let's see. Let's see. We'll kind of figure that out. But again, thank you guys for sticking with me. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.